Once upon a time, a man named Adam lived in a village. He owned wheat fields. Adam lived with his wife, Elizabeth, and their daughter, Sia. She was their world. Adam's brother, Johnson, lived in the next village with his son Louis and daughter Ava. Sia had a best friend named Kate. Life in the village was simple and happy. But now, Adam and others were worried. Robberies were increasing day by day. A gang of dacoits was targeting rich people in nearby villages. However, their village was still safe for now. One morning, Sia woke up and walked into the lawn and sat on the wooden cradle, gently rocking herself. A dreamy smile played on her lips as she lost herself in thought.
I want to marry someone who loves me deeply. I don't know how he will look, but when I see him, his eyes will be filled with love just for me.
A soft breeze touched her face, as if whispering secrets of a love yet to come. After some time, she walked into the kitchen, where the warm smell of fresh bread filled the air. Elizabeth was busy with the maids. Sia sat down. Soon, the maids placed breakfast on the table. Just then, Adam came. He smiled at Sia and sat down. Adam took a sip and said,
"Today I might be late."
Elizabeth replied,
All right.
After breakfast, Adam set out for work, and Sia went to her room. She got dressed and told Elizabeth,
Mom, I'm going to meet Kate.
Elizabeth nodded.
Okay, dear.
Sia kissed her mother's cheek and left. Soon she reached Kate's home. They went to Kate's room. Sia sighed.
I heard dacoits robbed a landlord in a nearby village.
Kate said,
I heard the same. I'm scared. What if they come here next?
Sia clenched her fists.
I want to teach their leader a lesson.
Kate laughed.
If he ever comes, you won't be able to talk to him.
Sia said confidently.
I'm not afraid of anyone.
After lunch, she returned back home. At night Adam came. He gathered the guards and said,
You all need to stay alert.
He said,
Dacoits have been robbing nearby villages. They could come at any time.
Then he entered the house and walked into the kitchen, where Elizabeth was busy with the maids. He smiled and said,
Please serve dinner immediately.
Then, turning to a maid, he added,
Call Sia for dinner.
Soon, Sia arrived and sat down. Adam sighed.
The dacoits robbed a landlord in a nearby village once again.
The maid served the food. Elizabeth said,
"You should increase the security."
I already did.
Adam replied. After a moment, Adam began talking about his day. On Sunday, they were sitting in the lounge when Uncle Johnson arrived with his family. Their faces were pale, their eyes filled with tears. Sia and Elizabeth were shocked. Adam's heart sank, but he stepped forward.
What happened, dear?
He asked, though an alarm rang in his mind. Johnson broke down.
They robbed us last night. They took everything. Our guards. They couldn't stop them.
Sia rushed to bring water. Eric sat with his head down. Aunt Emma and Ava wiped their tears, their faces full of sorrow. Adam placed a firm hand on Johnson's shoulder.
Be strong. You still have your fields.
Johnson nodded. The next day, Sia went to Kate's house.
"Kate, they robbed Uncle Johnson's home. Nothing is left,"
she said sadly. Kate's eyes widened. One morning, as Adam left for work, he soon rushed back, his face tense.
Elizabeth!
He shouted.
Robbers robbed Robert's house last night. I'm going there.
They both left for Kate's house. Elizabeth rushed to Robert's wife, Laura. Sia hugged Kate.
They took everything!
Kate cried. Sia's heart was burning with anger. One night, dacoits surrounded Adam's house. Their leader, Charles, whispered.
Do as I said.
Silently, his men entered after knocking out the guards. Soon, they were inside the lounge. Charles ordered.
Bring all here.
Robbers knocked on the bedroom doors. Adam and Elizabeth woke up. Elizabeth whispered.
"The robbers."
Adam stood up, but Elizabeth grabbed his hand.
"Please."
Adam sighed.
If I don't, they will break it.
He slowly unlocked it. Moments later, they were all gathered in the lounge. Sia woke up to the noise. She listened carefully. A sudden knock on her door made her freeze. Her eyes fell on a plate with an apple and a knife beside it. She grabbed the knife and hid it in her hands. Charles glared at Adam.
Tell me where the locker is.
Adam stayed silent. Charles stepped forward angrily. When a robber called out,
Master! This door didn't open yet.
Charles turned and hurried upstairs. Charles broke down the door. Sia screamed.
Ah!
Charles stepped inside, but when he saw her, he stopped. Sia was shivering, her eyes filled with tears, and her lips trembling. Charles slowly took a step toward her. His eyes softened. But in an instant, Sia's shaking hands raised the knife to his chest. Her eyes were filled with a mix of fear and pure hatred. Charles felt an unfamiliar chill run through him. He took a step back.
Go back!
He shouted. One of the robbers hesitated.
But why? Charles!
Charles growled.
Go back!
Reluctantly, the robbers left, and Charles followed them. Sia ran downstairs and flung herself into Adam's arms. Adam gently patted her head.
They are gone.
Everyone was surprised. The next day, Sia sat with Kate, still shaken by the events.
He didn't take anything from our house.
Kate raised an eyebrow.
Maybe he fell in love with you.
Sia didn't respond. One afternoon, as Sia was walking back from Kate's house, she suddenly stopped when someone appeared in front of her. She stepped back.
You!
Without thinking, she ran. Suddenly, Sia stumbled and fell to the ground. He quickly reached her.
Why are you so afraid of me?
She scrambled to her feet, shouting.
Because you are a robber!
He froze.
But I didn't rob your house.
Sia replied.
But you robbed my uncle!
He took a step back and said,
Now I will rob your heart.
Sia stood up and ran towards home. Her heart was racing. One day, Robert came to Adam and told him Charles, the leader of the robbers, was hiding in the nearby forest. He has left the gang. Sia was stunned. The villagers decided to find him, and Sia followed them. When they reached there, they found Charles and beat him. Sia, hiding behind a tree, watched through her tears. After they left, she approached Charles and asked why he had left his gang. He weakly looked at her and said,
I left for you.
Sia, crying, went back home. Every day, Sia secretly brought Charles food, medicine, and water. Some days later, Adam found out.
Why are you going to him?
He shouted.
I love him.
she replied. Adam went to the forest and told Charles.
I will never allow my daughter to marry you.
Charles smiled.
But she loves me.
Adam said.
You will give her nothing but defame.
That night, when Sia arrived, Charles said,
You must marry someone else.
Sia cried.
I can't marry anyone else.
Charles said,
If you want me alive, marry someone else.
Sia cried and returned back home heartbroken. Knowing she would marry for the sake of his life but love him forever.